Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the Hewlett Packard Houston Open Preview Show. First and foremost, thank you for stopping by. Give me about 20, 25 minutes, and I will cover everything you need from course breakdown. Got a bunch of models that I ran that I think are going to help us kind of narrow down the field from a DFS GPP perspective. And also, I'm going to give you my favorite bets at the end of the show. And we'll do a quick recap of the Mayakoba. So with that said, let's do this. Okay, so again, Big Dick Vic wins back-to-back and gets to kiss the chameleon once more. Of course, he was one of my top picks. I think it was, between him and JT at the most expensive. My guy that I was really hoping for was Taylor Gooch, and we'll talk a little more about that. But yeah, I mean, Victor, of course, did everything that we wanted out of a player for this course, and he just made a ton of putts. So he made the par putts when he needed to, drained a lot of long birdie putts, and then, of course, the guy is elite tee to green. So when he puts that all together, yeah, it is going to come out with a victory. It wouldn't matter if it's this course or probably, almost any tournament he plays in. If he plays like what he did, it was far above everybody else. With that said, we can kind of look at, so what I wanted to do, I thought this was kind of interesting because I'm not showing you all the guys that I picked, but quite a few of them, of course, showed up here. But this was the large model that I ran, and I was pretty happy with it when I went back and looked. And, of course, Aaron Wise, who came out strong, kind of fell back a bit. Of course, Taylor Gooch, as I mentioned, one time I think he was, a stroke or two behind on Sunday. And then his putter was exactly opposite of Victor Hovland, where he could not make anything. And then I think on 16, he drove it, wide into the trash. And, I think he took a double there. Same with Scotty Scheffler, who was not one of my picks, but I was using quite a bit in Showdown. And I was killing it until him and Scotty, Gooch and Scotty, just fell apart. But on that side note, of course, Justin Thomas came up fifth. I think he ended up around third place, something like that. Of course, Victor Hovland won. He was the sixth in my rank. You had Matthew Wolff, who was not one of my picks. I was a little worried about the driver, in which that kind of showed up a little bit on Saturday. But other than that, he played great. I mean, he had that 61. I think he was our 36-hole leader. Definitely our 18-hole leader. I don't remember after Friday if he was still leading or not. But like I said, the guy played amazing. And you're going to see that his prices went up extremely comparative. And then you had Carlos Ortiz here, who that was a bit shocking for me. I mean, I thought Carlos Ortiz, I mentioned, I'm not, again, don't remember I picked him. But I mentioned him and Abe Answer, of course, when they go, it seems like to their native countries that they, really want to play well there. The course did fit, but from a putting perspective, I was a little worried. But Carlos Ortiz just, he went en fuego on the back nine and shot all the way up to second. So CT Pan made the cut. I think Henrik Norlander also made the cut. Like I said, I'm not even sure of some of these guys. Tom Hoagie, I'm pretty sure he made the cut. Sergio, which a great ball striker, again, it comes on the putter. I think he ended up fifth. And on that note, let's go take a look at that so I don't have to sit and guess. This was actually your top 15 guys right here. And what you do get over here is you can see, driving distance gain, fairways gain, green and reg, scrambling, sand saves. That's kind of the old school statistics before stroke gain analysis or before shot link. And so you can kind of see who stuck out. Like I said, Scotty, he actually had a birdie putt, I think like a 6-footer on 18 that would have helped. He could have made that for me, but he had to miss that too. Just the putter went south on him. But you can kind of just see over here, if you want to get an understanding, I mean, everything in this categories, Victor Hovland was just en fuego. And again, we don't know what he gained in the strokes of the putter, but I definitely get, again, estimating somewhere between 3 to 4, maybe even 5 strokes gain on the field when it came to the putter, because he just putted some of the best I've ever seen him. But he likes those greens. I think I saw him have one missed chip on Sunday. That was it, like one chunk. But anyways, so that just gives you kind of a picture. Like I said, there's Aaron Wise that, like I said, came in position, tied for 15th. Taylor Gooch fell way back again on that back nine. Abe Answer, typical on Sundays, he shot up the board, ended up in 7th. And then my Danny Lee, talked about him, right? He was my pick for the Bermuda, or was my, kind of one of my sneaky picks. He was at that time like 6,000, like 6,300. Also had a bet on him, as some of you know. It did not work out. Again, he fell apart on me on the back nine there, but I did not pick him for this. It's pretty rare that you see back to back that a guy would do what he did. So good for him. And also, side note, he was playing on, I think, some kind of, I think it was a physical limitations or like, on he had a couple tournaments he had to do so many points in FedEx to get his full status back, and he did it. So I didn't even know that was part of it, but that could be a little bit that was, but also that could have went the other way, right? When you have that kind of stress, like a medical exemption. I'm not sure if it was a medical exemption, but he definitely needed to get so many FedEx points, I believe over 44, and now he has full status again. So, anyways, keep an eye out for Danny Lee is all I was going with that. All right, let's get into the HP Houston Open. That's what I'm going to call it, and then we're just going to call it the Houston Open because that's what it's been known. Way back when it was called the Shell Open. Well, not way back. That was probably about 6-7 years ago. But we're back to the States, and we are back at a big boy course. And, of course, the location is Houston, Texas. And the golf course they were playing is called Memorial Park. They played this the previous year. The few years before that, it was played at the Golf Club of Houston, which is a somewhat similar track. The only difference is that's a par 72. We're on a par 70 now, but pretty similar in yardage and also how the course kind of plays. I mentioned this course, was opened way back in 1936 by John Brennemus was the head architect then, and then they had a big renovation back in 2019 with Tom Doak, and actually Brooks Koepka was the player consultant on that. I think I remember, a lot of people were kind of on Brooks last year, and he had a pretty good showing here. I think what he ended up like third or fourth. And then, everybody was, because this was played right before the Masters, and everybody was excited about that. And then, Brooks missed a cut, if I remember correctly, at the Masters. But neither here or there. We have some, which is nice. We have some stroke gain data. We have really good comparable courses and tournaments that we can use to find out the guys that we want to play from a GPP, DFS perspective, and also from a betting perspective. And so to get into some of the numbers, of course, as I mentioned already, a par 70, it's a big boy course, 7,400 plus yards. You've got 419 Bermuda fairways. Then you got the rough at about 2.25-inch height. So whenever coming out of Bermuda, especially if it gets wet or in the morning, it can get a little tricky coming out. And then you also got Bermuda greens, Midi Verde to be specific, if you are curious. The player field is very similar than what we've had as in a size. So again, it's another 132 players cut down to T65 in ties. Historical cut line, we only got 1 year at this course, and that's what I'm going with, is +4. So again, you can see right there that, we're not going to be seeing those 20 unders. I would guess, depending, if the wind blows, it's one thing, and we are going to be, we're in Texas, so there can be some wind. Nothing like a coastal course typically, but yeah. So I would guess somewhere around 12 under to 15 under is probably what we're looking to expect. Of course, last year, Carlos Ortiz got his maiden win on tour and shot 13 under. Then you had Hideki coming at 11 under, DJ at 11 under, and then Taylor Gooch 9 under. Average green size, these are larger greens than average. I always say the average green size on tour is about 5,000 square feet. These are 7,000 square feet. Think of Augusta National greens. That's kind of what these look like and play like. A lot of undulation, a lot of break. There's a lot of runoff. So, one thing you could look at is who's done well at Augusta. I think there is some comparable there. Of course, that's a bent green, not Bermuda. They got rid of a lot of sand bunkers here back in that renovation in 2019. So there's 17 sand bunkers. Now you've got 2 big water hazards that 4 holes actually run on. So you got 4 holes that water can come into play. So that's not really the problem. These greens do run fast. I don't have a stent meter reading, but if I had to give you a guess, probably around 12. And last year, past course conditions, they were about medium firmness. So again, of course, that comes down to, how much rain do they have beforehand or during the tournament. Depends on how firm these greens will get. The course defense, I already mentioned, of course, you always get the weather and the wind, but there is some very long par 4s. There's 4 par 4s, 450 or over. There's a couple at 500 plus. You've got, typically you have 3 par 3s that are 200 plus, but I noticed on the official scorecard, and we'll talk about that right now they're showing only 2 par 3s that are 200 plus. I already mentioned the crazy undulated greens. So we need good putters, and then there's a lot of like runoffs, and a lot of the bunkers that used to be there are now just kind of, they allow the grass to grow over, and so they're cutting it tight. So you got a lot of the, where it runs off the green down into kind of like a pit area. So you're going to have to be really good with your short game. Trying to see what else here. Yeah, I guess we'd go with pass notes. I think Sam Burns, if you just real quickly, when you see him in the field, you see Bermuda, you need an amazing ball striker. You need a guy with decent short game. That's where Sam Burns out of everything. Maybe his short game around the green is not as great, but he'd be the first one. He's like, there's a good, a really good person to pick. And I think he is the most expensive or right up there. And that's just amazing to me. That Taylor Gooch and Sam Burns, these are the guys that if you've been doing DFS golf for at least a few years, there was days where you could plug in Burns and Gooch and they were around, high 6,000s, low 7,000s. I always mention that with you had Tringali and Lanto Griffin, who is a past winner of this event. Actually, it was his first win. That was a couple of years ago at Golf Club of Houston. But it was the same thing. Like you had two guys that you could always count on to get you the cut and were pretty cheap. And now all those guys, except for Lanto now, is not that expensive. I don't know what he is here, but Tringali's, typically in the 8,000-9,000 range. And now you got Gooch is up there now. You got Burns. So you got to get a little more interest. We got to find the guys. I'm just going, that we can count on like those guys now because their games have just gotten better and better. Where I was going, all that is that the previous year, Burns did hold the third round lead coming in, and then he fell apart on Sunday. He shot 2 over. Brooks, I already mentioned him about the redesign, and I think that was really it. I think that's enough on the course breakdown for you. Now to give you kind of a visual understanding of what this course is doing, if you haven't seen this tournament, this over here just kind of gives you a lay of the land, but I think this gives you even a better perspective. It's an old traditional course. It's right in front of you, but it's super long. You do got the trees, but it does show up that you can get a little wayward with the driver. Distance is definitely going to be in play here. You can kind of see what I was talking about, these multiple a couple of water hazards that, they kind of run back and forth a couple of the different fairways and greens that where it could come and play. It looks like number 4. It'd be pretty tricky to get yourself in the water there. You'd have to hit a shot like maybe I would, but you see 14, there's like a creek cavern running down in 15. But yeah, anyways, there's, the hazards. The main course defense of this is the greens and how much slope and undulation, the chipping, and then of course the length. So that's the two main things that we're going to be looking at. And then also this gives you just kind of another view. Here's one, like I said, where that creek kind of runs through. It's just one more hazard, and that's kind of illustrated here, 14 and 15. Okay. Oh, and also I always state on that is the best thing you can do if you've not watched this tournament before is go on YouTube, type in, round 1 highlights of the Vivint. At that time, it was the Vivint Houston Open, but just put the 2021 Open. They might put 2020 and, watch that, and you're going to get a really good understanding of what this course demands. Okay, onto the scorecard. This is a, kind of punch in the mouth to start your round and then kick you in the ass on the way out. So you got the number 2 handicap right on the first hole, and you got the number 3 handicap on the last hole, and that's a long par 4. But the front 9 overall is the easier of the 2 9s. But this is a course, it's a par 70. If you shoot par or 1 or 2 under, you've done well. That's a good round on this course, just to give you an understanding. Like I said, we've been used to like the vacation island swing courses and then you had Shriners. I mean, we've had a lot of when you're playing Showdown or anything, if you're not seeing your guys making 5 to 7 birdies, you're stressed out. On this course, you want to see 2 or 3 birdies and no bogeys if possible. Something like that that's a great round here is what I'm getting to. And then to kind of just go over the holes, we'll look at it this way. I mentioned, this par 3, a little shorter, 167 for this course. Then you got almost a 600-yard par 5, but there's 3 par 5s. There's 10 par 4s and 5 par 3s. But yeah, you are going to have to make your hay on the par 5s as typical, especially on this course. But they're not gibbies. I mean, you got a 625 and then you got a 576. So they're all, that's where that ball striking and distance off the tee is going to come in handy. You can see 490 par 4. Trying to see another 456, a 496, a 529 at hole 14, that 503. So, I mean, some really long par 4s that you have to manage. I highlight number 9 here because in past, this was a 202-yard par 3. Right now, what they're showing on the official scorecard, at least for the first day, is going to be playing 182. Now, right, they can move the tees, they can move it back, they can move it forward. But just to give you an idea that, I think of Adam Scott right off the bat on who's some of the best long distance par three players. Adam Scott just always amazes me on par threes. But anyways, that gives you an idea of the scorecard. And really, there's no recommendation, on a showdown play of, hey, do you want to shoot them off the back or the front? I mean, like I said, the front is easier. So I guess if you really want to look at it, if you check the wind and you see that it's going to be calm in the morning, if you get the guys going off the backside in the morning, and then, to get through the tougher kind of nine, and then, go. But like I said, this course, it's not like the previous where you could watch at Mayakoba, right? The front nine guys were just boat racing that. And then on the back, you had holes 16, 17, 18 that caused really the only problems on that course. I mean, the only thing that course had to defend was hole number 16, and they needed a crazy wind or that course was going to get torched like it did. All right, so how do you win the Houston Open at Memorial Park? So this is where I give you kind of the top stroke gain analysis. And again, just like last week, ball striking, I think, is still number one. Whenever you get on these courses that you need guys hitting the 200 plus shots, really good with the long irons, good with the woods and the hybrids. You need the guys off the tee too, but I think ball striking is number one. And that kind of takes tee to green. You could look at tee to green or ball striking. It includes off the tee and approach. Driving distance, and not without fairways. I'm not worried about so much guys keeping in a fairway. They've got room, even they get a little wayward, but we do need bombers. You look at Substraka's done well here, and typically, he's not the greatest player, but if you go back and track kind of his career, and especially last year, you need the guys that can bomb it. Putting definitely is going to show up here. We need good putters, especially 20 feet or 25 feet and outside. So we're going to look at some long distance putting. Approach, as I already mentioned, is always key. Especially if you're in striking distance, we got those par threes, the irons, and the short of it is we need guys that are good all around. This is an event that you're not going to fake it around this course. Around the green is going to come up extremely. You're going to have to be very good with that. And then I mentioned approximately the pin that I'm really going to look at. I mean, there's multiple ones, but the real big one that stands out to me is this 200 plus yardage. 23% of the shots last year came in from 200 plus. I'm also going to be focused on the guys that can, either stroke gain or at least manage these long par fours, these long par threes. And then, of course, we need guys to make hay on the par fives. And last but not least, I put scrambling. And that also includes around the green, right? I mean, you're scrambling if you're chipping, 20, 30 yards. Some people, when you think of scrambling, it's, you hit it in the woods and now you got to get out. But it also includes around the green. So I put that in as kind of just an extra buffer. And again, we don't have multiple. And again, I could have pulled up the Houston Open back at Golf Club of Houston, but whenever we have any kind of historical data at the specific course we're playing, that's what I want to look at. So I'm only going to pull up the one past winner. I did mention Lonto Griffin, was the previous year winner. But like I said, I looked at it and there was a little bit of different data that wasn't exact. So we're just going to stick with this. And so, I mean, the things that stick out, of course, tee to green, that's very typical. But the putting, guys did well, gaining, at minimum 3.5 strokes with the putter, up to 6 strokes. That finished top 5. Around the green, showed up, which sometimes that does not show up, but you can see you are going to have to manage that. Approach, everyone, 2.5 to 3.5 strokes gain. And then off the tee, like I said, what you can look at here is, I think when everybody thinks off the tee, that means, just distance. And it's not, it's fairways and distance. And so you can see Carlos Ortiz might have not hit as many fairways, but he was still hitting it out there 3+. So that's what you need to see him. Same with Taylor Gooch. Maybe he wasn't hitting, if that thing gets in the first cut, they consider that a missed fairway. So just to give you an idea. But DJ, of course, was, at least from what you can see here out of the top 5, led the field off the tee. So with all that said, again, you can see you need everything, but I think putting, distance, around the green, and then approach is probably the way I'd be looking at it. All right, so that said, as always, I've created a larger model for you guys, and no filters. So we're not looking at anything from a distance or a par rating or from, green types or none of that. This is looking at just the last 3 tournaments these guys have played, and then taking the model that I built and what I looked at and weighted the heaviest is ball striking at 25%, approach 10, so kind of double down a little bit there. Putting at 10%, driving distance at 10%, that proximity from 200 out 10%, and then gaining on long par fours, the 2 long par fours, 5% on each of these, 500 plus and 450, 500. Because what it's going to tell me is guys that, again, can hit, the long irons or the hybrids well. Par 3 is long. I put it at 10%. Par 5, getting stroking on that, scrambling in the round of green. Okay. And like I say, plug that in, click my rank, and this gives you the top 20 guys that do those things very well. So if you think that I'm on the right path, then these are the guys that, from the last 3 tournaments they played have done those very well. And it does come up with the guys that I expect. I mean, Taylor Gooch, my number one. And when I think of tough courses, I've mentioned this multiple times before. Taylor Gooch has done, if you look at his track record of, Wells Fargo or Murfield or the Genesis or you name, the longer, tougher tracks, he's shined pretty well there. Sam Burns, of course, Sanderson Farms, he just won this year. The guy is one of the best ball strikers and has the putting now. Like I said, the round the green, not terrible over the last 3 tournaments, but 21st. Aaron Wise is, again, it's just, does the putter happen or not? I love Aaron Wise's game. So like I said, these top 3 guys, were all the guys that I was on the previous week. So again, there is some crossover from this, what we just saw and what we wanted to hear. Sungjae M, an elite ball striker. And again, it comes on the putter with him. And like I said, the rest of these guys, I'll tell you the ones that I'm interested in that are maybe a little different. Mark Leishman, I'm very interested in him. I bet him, I already tell you right now, 40-1. And because, like I said, just he does everything now. It's what is that driver going to do? So you could see distance not been a problem. And if I had fairways turned on, that could come in there. Same with Adam Scott. I already said a lead on long par 3s. And if he can do what he's been doing, he's actually been playing pretty well comparative to what he was doing. I think he's an interesting play. I was shocked from a betting perspective. He's actually won this tournament, but it was way back at a different course. I think it was 2007 when he won here. But I was shocked at his price and his odds. I think he's like 18-1. It's just he has not shown enough to warrant either of these, the pricing or those kind of odds. So that's very interesting to me. I mean, I'd rather take a flyer on Griot again. I think Johnny Vegas is interesting. So Mito Pierre, I think, could be a very interesting. I mean, he's an amazing ball striker. His putting's just been horrific. Where is the putting for him? Yeah, 113th. But everything else, he's been, last 3 tournaments leading. I think he missed the cut at, what was it, Bermuda? He did miss the cut somewhere, and he was priced very high. Luke List, I think, is very interesting. It's, his putter's a debacle, but I think he's someone that you could take a flyer on when you get down that kind of pricing. Okay, moving on. So we only have 1 year of past data, but that's enough for me to at least show you, again, against my model, how they done at Memorial Park. And of course, no shocker, Carlos Ortiz is your number 1. Jason Day was probably the sneaky play, right? I think I don't know where he ended up. I think he was top 5, but he kind of fell apart a little bit on Sunday, but I think he was in the lead on Saturday. So anyways, that was kind of out of nowhere for Jason Day, but he is in the field. HV3, I mean, he didn't have that great of a showing last week. I mean, he made the cut, but again, like Johnny Vegas, I've said there, Johnny Vegas and Harold Varner, I guess would be almost kind of like the Taylor Gooch and Burns of now. Like, they're in the 7,000 range, and they do some things very well. And if the putter goes, then, we're good to go. Seb Straka, I mentioned, had a good showing here last year. Brice Koepka, I think it was 3 over on Friday, had to make a little charge, and then actually had a good Saturday, Sunday. You think out of anybody, because he knows this course very well, helped be kind of consult on the design, and I'm guessing has had to play it quite a bit. You would think he would not be too bad of a play here, but he's just been off. So I did bet him. He was 28-1. So 28-1 to get Brice Koepka. I mean, I've always said if you get like a JT at 30-1, Brice Koepka, you get an elite talent, almost 30-1. You got to kind of take that. Top ball striker, so that's where I was kind of going. Mito Pereira, he comes up again over the last 3 tournaments. He's number one. Of course, Sam Burns. Then you got like the Kyle Stanley, who I think actually I picked in my value plays, who did make the weekend. I'm almost 100% sure, but just I think he again didn't do nothing with the putter. Emiliano Grino was one of my picks that fell apart and did not make the cut. I think he shot 5 under the first day and then shot 1 or 2 over the next day and missed it by a stroke or two. I would guess I picked Russ Henley too, and came out again 6-7 under the first day, fell apart on the second day. Again, all talking about Mayakoba, but did have I think a solid Sunday. I think he shot around 5 under. But yeah, a lot of the cast of characters that I liked last week, I think are very applicable here. I guess is short of it, but that gives you an idea. Your top 20 ball strikers in the field over the last 3 tournaments. If you're just curious about the guys that are leading in distance, because that is going to be a key factor. It's not the end all be all by any stretch of the imagination. But if you were going to start thinking of guys that you want to take some risk to get you, to the weekend, at least they do one thing very well and one thing you need on this course. And so like, Taylor Pendrith, right? I mean, at Bermuda, he almost won that. But kind of fell apart a little bit on Sunday. But he's, one of the longest guys up here. Of course, Matthew Wolff, who showed us 3 out of 4 good days of golf. And his, like I said, his price reflects, his betting odds now reflect it. I regret that I did not bet him last week. And usually I jump on that. I think he was either 40-1 or 60-1. Now, again, he's below 20-1. I think he's like 18-1, something like that. So can't do that. But yeah, this gives you a list of guys that you could think about that you might want to put in, like a Trey Mullinex. Of course, Wyndham Clark actually showed up. I can't even think what the last tournament was, but made the cut. I mean, that was good for Wyndham Clark because he does 2 things well, distance and off the tee well. He putts well. It's everything in between is a disaster. Brandon Hagee could be an interesting play down there. Of course, I'm not doing my value plays. I'm just giving you some ideas of bets that if you want to take some long shots, because I know like Trey Mullinex, Wyndham Clark's 200-1. And I'm going to talk about some of the guys that I bet. Luke List, I think, is 150-1. So if you're like me and I like to take some shots on longer guys because you just never know. Now, this is not a tournament that typically gives away to a very high odd player to win. But again, you never know, man. They're all PGA pros, and at any time, man, if the ball starts falling in with the putter and they're just have it that week, you could get that 200-1 guy. Hence, Phil Mickelson at the PGA Championship. All right. If you want to know who's the best Bermuda putters over the last, what was that? So that would be 6 tournaments. Took me a moment. I had to do math, which is not my strong suit. 24 rounds, last 6 tournaments they played. Whenever I do putting, I take a larger sample because I believe guys can get really streaky with a putter for a tournament. Bezadenhout, who I think at the Bermuda, what was it? Bezadenhout and I'm blanking on the other guy now. Were like the top 2 most expensive guys. And they didn't do crap. But anyways, Bezadenhout, Hadley, Cam Smith, I'm very interested in. Of course, the pricing shows it. And of course, his odds also reflect it. But he does a lot. And I'm kind of shocked because Cameron Smith hasn't done a ton. I mean, he's been okay. Had a pretty good FedEx playoff. But I guess what I'm getting to is the books and also everybody's pricing these guys a little smarter than what I've seen in the past. Anyways, Harry Higgs, I think, is a very interesting play down here. Who else might be someone that you might want to look at? Just looking at guys. There's my Leishman again. I'm big on the Aussies. Leishman and Smith, I think, are going to be great plays this week. So expect them in my top 15. Okay, and then from a comparable course or comp tournaments, however you want to look at it, I'll go over this. These are my 6 top comp courses for this tournament. What does this mean? This means that I do believe that if you look at guys who've done well at very similar courses and have just shown over and over, then they should do well at this track. And so the number 1 I think is Valero. That's at TPC San Antonio. It is a par 72. So different. So it's not a par 70, but it's 7,400 yards. It is Bermuda. It is tree. Like there's a lot of similarities of TPC San Antonio. I think Sanderson Farms, where, like I said, Sam Burns just won, which of course that is at the CC of Jackson. It's also a par 72, 7,461 yards, Bermuda. You got Wells Fargo, of course, that's Quail Hollow, where McElroy just, not recently, but did win. That's a par 71, that's 7,500 yards, and that's Bermuda. Of course, also one of my favorite bets. I'll just let that out too. We'll go over it again. But Keith Mitchell, who had a chance to win that thing. He's got crazy length. I think he could be a sneaky play, and you can see. Well, it's funny. I should have brought the one up. I didn't put the one up pricey, but the names are all the same. He does well in the comparable courses. So, some of these guys, you can get an idea that their pricing would be lower, like Lonto Ryan, because they've had success on some of these courses that are listed. Of course, Bay Hill, Arnold Palmer, that is a par 72, 7,454 yards, Bermuda. I also, like I said, the Golf Club of Houston, where this used to be played before it moved to Memorial Park, is also a very good, pretty good comparable course. It's a par 72, but it's 7,441 yards. Bermuda, also very similar in how the course plays. And then kind of a last but not least, just for me to plug in one more just to see, I think the Tournament of Champions played at Kapalua. That is, I believe that's a par 73. And and it's almost 7,600 yards, and that's Bermuda. That one's probably a little bit of a stretch, but I typically like to bang against 4 or 5 to 8 tournaments. Sometimes I see things that I might have missed. I think Max Homa is also interesting, an interesting play from a GPS or GPP DFS play. I have not bet him yet because I think he was like 40-1. Because it's not on the West Coast, is to be honest, and it's Bermuda. But getting tee to green, I like Max. All right, with that said, let's take a look at my favorite bets, give you guys some ideas where I'm at. And I already mentioned Luke List right off the bat, of course, elite tee to green. It's just the putter is typically a fiasco. But with those guys, if it just clicks one time, one weekend, you're getting a lot for a little. And so 150-1, I like that. Carlos Ortiz, I actually wanted to bet Taylor Gooch, but he is like 14-1. Like, I was shocked. Last week we got Taylor Gooch 35-1. It's like they flip flop. But you think Carlos Ortiz, past winner on this course last year, just had a second place at a somewhat comparable course, and he's 35-1. So I'm like, okay, you know what? The odds that he's going to win back to back. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but since Victor Hovland won the Mayakoba back-to-back or, defended, the last time that I can think of was Paul Casey at Valspar, which he didn't win it this previous, but he won the 2 years before that. I can't think of another guy that's defended since him. So what I'm getting to is it's freaking rare. I already mentioned Mark Leishman. He showed a bit of life the last couple tournaments we've seen him at. Everything he does fits this course for me, like the long irons, the short game, the putting from 25 feet out. So I like him 40-1. Henrik Norlander, again, I mean, if you really look at Luke List, Killer Keith, Mitchell, and Norlander, they're all 150-1, and they're all very similar to how they, their benefits. They're both, great ball strikers, tee to green. Typically, it's the putter that kills them. I think out of the 3, Keith Mitchell, we know he won the Honda, which is a par 70, but it's only like 7,100 yards, a lot of water. But I mean, if you can win on that track, anytime you come to a tough track, I feel like, you can tell yourself. And then also, the ability to almost win Wells Fargo this year, kind of probably from 150-1 would be like where I would lean the most. If you're going to take one long shot, I like Killer Keith. The one that, I hate to bet 18-1, I really do, but I really like Cam Smith. So I threw a little heavier bet on that, and we'll see how that works out. But so that's it. You got my favorite bets. You've got the course breakdown. You got my models. I think you guys got everything you need, at least to get the brain start spinning for this tournament. I'm excited about this tournament. I mean, I like the island swing, but we're going to get more coverage. And just without having stroke gain data that you can track during a tournament without the coverage, it's hard. And now we got PGA Live, at least for Thursday, Friday for this event. And then you'll have the Golf Channel for the weekend. So I'm excited to get back a little more into golf. I'm not going to lie, like probably a few of you with football going on and, the island swing, or we had the Zozo that was in Japan. So trying to watch that was tough because it was that late at night, and then we're just not getting a lot of coverage. But, we're back in the States. This is the second to the last event of the year. So enjoy it. And then, we're going to have a little break with golf for a bit. So that said, hey, do me the honor and keep me doing what I'm doing by clicking that like button, share it with anybody else. If you've not subscribed, I beg of you, click that subscribe button. It's just going to keep me, like I said, moving in. I'm literally 50 subscribers from hitting my goal from when I started this a year ago of 1,000. So if for some odd reason you've listened to this point, do me the honor of clicking that subscribe button. And I put out 3 shows a week, and I think you'll find I do things a little different here. I just get into the details, into the information, and that's it. I'm definitely not as entertaining as some others, but I think you get good content and good info for nothing. No commercials yet, no nothing. I am going to do prize picks. Hey, some people did ask me what happened to my prize picks. I'm still talking about those guys. I just kind of slowed it down a little bit, but I will give you guys my prize picks for this tournament. And on that note, if for some odd reason you have not went to prize picks, if you do it now, they are matching still dollar for dollar up to $100 if you put in Golf Guru. And I'll give you the guys that I like this week that I'm going to play for Thursday round. I always just do Thursday and see if we can win some money. We were doing awesome. They kind of scaled back the guys that you could pick, and that a little bit bothered me that, you're only giving me like 7 guys. So hopefully they're going to have at least 10 to 15 guys that we can look at. And then last but not least, if I can help you with anything, hit me up on the YouTube comments or on DFS Golf Guru on Twitter sphere. And while I'm thinking of it for one and done, if it was my one and done, if you've not used Gooch yet, I would play Taylor Gooch. I like Scotty Scheffler, as you see here. Texas guy going back, showed up really well at Mayakoba. I'd think about Scotty Scheffler. And then, of course, you already heard my Mark Leishman or Cam Smith. That would probably be my top 4 guys for one and done, if you're curious. All right, guys, take care. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow to do my picks. So I'll be back to kind of the way it was, where I give you my top 15 picks tomorrow. Talk to you guys later.